My name is Jorge Rovirosa, proud member of AMA's class of 1970. I'm from Miami, Florida. I have a wife named Kiki. I have 6 children and 7 grandchildren.
So you're from Miami. When you came to AMA, did you come from Miami to Fort Defiance?
Yes, I did.
What were the circumstances about?
Well, I wasn't doing well in school, and my father believed very much in sending his kids to school away from home, especially to military academy for the boys. I guess I was following in my older brother's footsteps, other than he went to a school in New York and I came to a school in Virginia. How AMA was picked, basically I went through a series of tests given by an educational counselor. We talked about different military academies. I wanted to go away to a place where I would get the change in season, especially snow, because in Miami and Cuba, where my native country, where I'm from, we see no snow. So Virginia was halfway to New York, I guess, and the first school on the list was Augusta Military Academy, and I said, well, that sounds good, let's try that. That's how AMA was picked.
Can you recall your first few days at AMA?
Well, I do remember clearly arriving. We took the train from Miami. Back then there was a problem with hijacking of airplanes, and my dad didn't want to go through that. So we took the train from Miami up to Richmond, and then took the bus from Richmond Station back to Stanton on old Route 250, because the interstate didn't exist at the time. Staying at Stonewall Jackson Hotel at the time. The next day we went to AMA and took a taxi there, and I remember doing the new cadet thing, the uniforms, going through the gym and getting fitted for the uniforms. All that I was pretty excited about, because it was fancy new uniforms, and I thought it was pretty neat. And then I was left for the first evening, and again, it's 7th grade, so I was in junior barracks, actually, in the annex under Davis Hall. My room, I think we had like 6 guys in that room. It was pretty big. I remember the first night, my parents were still around, so it was okay, but then after that, after they left, I remember getting homesick. I've never been away from home, and it was tough for a few days, no doubt about it, and getting used to the place and what have you, but yeah, those were memorable moments.
Do you recall who your first squad leader was, your first authority figure?
Barry Buzzard was our captain, for F Company at the time. This is before the F Troop TV program, so it was known as F Company. And he was my company commander at the time. I was at AMA for 7 years, like I said, starting in the 7th grade until I graduated in 1970. So for 6 years, I guess I was a lifer. Doc Savage played a key role in my life in getting me to become a better student, challenging me as we went along. His history class was something that I really, really enjoyed. I did chemistry with him as well, but I was more into history than anything else. Tim Manasmith was my science teacher, and he was an unforgettable character. He would remind us that when we graduated from AMA that we should make sure to wear our AMA hats, and people would understand. Now, you can figure that one out. Of course, Colonel Hoover was a special character. Taught me geometry, which was pretty tough because he was a hard teacher to understand. Those are pretty much the teachers that impacted my life. What
did you do with your free time when you were on campus?
Well, at first, during the first few years, before I got into sports, I was pretty much bearing down and relaxing after class a little bit before we hit the books. Socializing with my fellow cadets.
Were you involved in any sports?
Yes. I played lacrosse, started out playing for Colonel Hoover in the JV, and then went over to the varsity under Big Ed Hart. And another amazing man that I should have mentioned earlier that played a key role also in my life, a wonderful teacher. His class was really, really interesting. He taught me government. I remember that he would take roles such as being a communist, and having the class argue back with him. You smile because I think you were in his class, but anyways, I remember he would take his class on. We would try to debate democracy versus communism, and it was a very, very interesting class. And of course, he was a wonderful coach, had a lot of patience, had a great knowledge of the sport, and really knew how to get the best out of his players. A wonderful man.
Without classes on the weekend, what did you do on your Saturdays?
Well, I remember I guess my junior and senior years, I had a girlfriend in town, so I was pretty much taken care of, if you will, because I would visit her in her home. Parents were like second parents to me. They fed me well. Okay. So yeah, I was very lucky at that, well fed by them. So it was a lot of fun. And but town, I remember initially going to town, and it, you know, it's you wink and miss it compared, you know, with where I came from. So there was only so much to see and so much to do, but it made it special, you know, having a girlfriend in town that I could certainly take time off and visit with them.
As a seventh grader, living in a military environment with cleaning shoes, polishing brass, how difficult was that?
Well, not really. I mean, it was something that I had to do, so, and I had no choice, so you might as well go forward and do it. It didn't bother me. It was something that I did as just because I had to do it, so wasn't a big concern.
What did you do the first couple of years when you left AMA?
Well, I attended the University of Richmond, and then went to the University of Miami and Miami-Dade College. Father asked me to please join him in the business. He needed some help, so I had to cut my college career short to join him in the family business, which is a shipping agency, and we later got into stevedoring and terminal operations.
Going back to your days at AMA, do you recall the most memorable sporting event?
It was my first year at AMA, the annual football game against Stanton Military Academy, which was an incredible rivalry between two schools that are very close by, as you know, one's in Stanton and we're in Fort Defiance. And just the preparation for that game, the school spirit that went, really that week of the SMA game was a big thing, and playing against them in Stanton at the old Gypsy Hill Park, I believe they have the stadium there. That was the site of a neutral ground, if you will, to play the game. And we beat them that year for the first time in I don't know how many years, so it was a big thing. And of course, there was also some extracurricular activities taking place during that week before the SMA game. We would send a bunch of guys over to SMA to try to take one of their signs and bring it back. SMA would send a bunch of their guys all, you know, dressed up in fatigues and whatever, and to try to get something from AMA and get the school spirit going at their place. And it was a very memorable rivalry.
Is there a special classmate or two you'd like to mention?
Well, some of my closest friends, I guess were mostly classmates, guys that I kind of grew up with, were there other AMA lifers, Lee Hall, who came to us from Tangier, Morocco, another gentleman that came in, I guess, a few years after I arrived, Larry Thiel. Now his name is Larry Milano. We're all very close. Bruce Ornstein, some of these guys that, you know, we grew up and we did so many things together. You know, we still communicate and stay in touch, along with others that of other classes as well.
Do you remember graduation day?
I sure do. It was a very emotional day. It was a culmination of 7 years of hard work, incredible friendships. It was coming to an end. Not knowing whether I was going to see these guys again was very hard. You make friends that sharing a very special moment in a very special place under very tough conditions. These are brotherhoods that are formed by going through the process and being in this place and being together every day, suffering and laughing. And so it was a very emotional day because I knew that was going to be the end of my career at AMA. And perhaps the words that Mal Livick used, Colonel Livick at the time, who's our superintendent, and he copied those of General Roller, and as he addressed the Corps cadets in the black top for the final formation. And tonight, the sun will set on an empty barracks. I still get chills from those words because that's when you come to realize that, and the hugging and crying that's taking place during that time among the seniors, because we all realize that it's coming to an end. That's what keeps me coming back to reunions, because I never know who I'm going to see that I haven't seen since that June day in 1970, and I always look forward to seeing them.
How did you celebrate?
Well, I had a cousin come up for that with my parents. I think we went out to a special luncheon that day, and since there weren't that many restaurants in town, we run into some of the other buddies. So it was just a simple luncheon, and that was it.
What's the highlights of your professional career?
Well, like I said, I started with my father in a time that he was struggling with his business, and he asked me to come in and join him. Not that I was going to be a savior by any means, but I guess he needed somebody to come in and do a lot of the work that needed to get done. So like any new business, struggling business, sometimes you get paid, sometimes you don't. So proud to say that I was there for him. I learned the business from the bottom up. The fact that today we are celebrating 55 years of operations in the Port of Miami and Port Everglades is probably the thing that I'm most proud of. I give him the credit because he was the one who started it. My older brother and I have been able to maintain and grow the business, and now we have other family members that are coming behind us, so it's going to be multi-generational business. Just the fact that I joined him in a time where he was struggling, and I wasn't going to be the great savior by any means, but I came in there to put my shoulder to work and assist him, and many times I never got paid for my work, but I know we were in the process of growing. We've grown this business now for 55 years. We're the oldest ship agent and stevedore and terminal operator in the Port of Miami and Port Everglades. And that is, to me, a big accomplishment. I also was elected president of the United States Propeller Club for the Port of Miami at a very young age. I think that happened in 1967 or so. And I led that club for a couple of years, and we did a lot of good things. And so I've been involved in the industry and tried to give back to that industry as best as I could.
You've had several roles in the association / foundation. What were those roles and when were they?
Well, I was elected president of the AMA Alumni Association. I believe it was 2009, and I served for 3 or 4 years. I had a lot of help from a lot of my fellow alumni that helped me put a lot of good programs together. We did some wonderful things. We retired the roller rifles. We retired the colors at that time. We had some incredible programs bringing in some special groups, which sponsored by American Airlines. We did the American Fallen Warrior Project, American Fallen Soldier Project here during one of our reunions in which Virginia and a warrior that had been killed in action was presented, his mother was presented with a portrait, and it was really a big thing. So I think that we did quite a bit in the Alumni Association. I think I've heard several comments as being one of the best reunions that have ever taken place.
What would your suggestions be that the audience could take in regards to promoting the AMA legacy? What are the things that can be done to perpetuate that?
Well, there has to be a firm commitment by our alumni. Without the commitment, which is basically financial, we cannot maintain our legacy beyond us. I think that we have some good opportunities that have been discussed in reference of joining forces with other military academies to form a museum of Virginia military schools. And I think that is a wonderful idea that can assure heritage go forward in the future.
What's your favorite meal in the mess hall?
Oh, goodness. Well, I don't know. The food was challenging. I mean, you talk about favorite meals or very unusual meals. I think that breakfast, if you remember, sometimes, and I'll never forget the first time it was served. They'd bring a stainless steel bowl full of bacon and another bowl of baked apples. And we would get toasts that were hard as rocks. And I would get that and I would say, well, what in the heck where are the eggs? You know? So it was kind of unusual, but we learned fast, you know. We would make wonderful bacon sandwiches. Yeah, you make sure you put some jelly, because we did get jelly. So jelly and the bacon, and you close that, and that and a cup of coffee, as we called it, motor oil, was, you know, what kept us going. The apples, well, I never got used to them. So, you know, I didn't know. That, and I think I'll never forget in the springtime, I don't know why, but our milk would always taste a little bit like onions. I later found out that was the cheaper brand that we could get, so that's why we got onion tasting milk.
What's your most humorous time or event or most funniest moment?
Well, you know, we were known for pranks in the barracks. I could remember 2 or 3 different things, and I think one of the ones that was very memorable is that we get up on a Sunday morning after Reveille and we go to formation. Actually, it was for breakfast, and so we form up on the blacktop, and I think this was in early spring, so it was a little bit chilly outside. Something happens. We are sitting there, or standing there, and nothing's. Battalion commander doesn't give the orders to, you know, left face and march to the mess hall. We were wondering what was going on. Well, as it turned out, there were no tables in the mess hall, and they were nowhere to be found. So after about maybe 45 minutes or so, they found them all stacked up in the bottom of the gym, which was sort of hilarious. I'd never seen that before. Another time, somebody decided to go into the rooms and take the shoes, the high-top shoes, and they were lined up in the front field. It was mass confusion because you didn't know where your left foot was or the left shoe was from the right foot, and that took a while to sort out. And another time, somebody decided to take all the chairs out of the mess hall and line them up on the bowl. So these are things that happened. I remember when I was in, I think it was E Company, and I think Bruce Orenstein was the company commander at the time. We would do pranks and what have you, and we got caught. So I think what happened was we blocked the front gate. This is winter time. We blocked the front gate with snow. Somebody ratted on us. So we were then called, as our punishment, we had to do a Reveille formation like a half an hour ahead of everybody else, and we'd have to wait for everybody to come down. And that was going to take, you know, we were going to, a week of this stuff. So we decided that the next day we needed to do this again. And we did. I forget who the commandant was at the time. Got so upset that he said, E Company, you can sleep in. The rest of the Corps has to go up, you know, for Reveille formation. So we got away with that one. And like that, there's many, many different pranks that I'm sure many of my fellow alumni will contribute.